Well, thanks for coming to the King's Road. You've been here before, haven't you?
Yeah, I love coming here. It's I mean, it's like
quite
a
a long way.
dream office.
Yeah, well, it's really a house, so.
I know.
But I've been here 20 years.
It's very personal to you.
Yeah.
You know.
All my rubbish all over the walls and everything.
No, but I like it, and I remember the first time I came here to meet you because I love Grenson, but couldn't really see how I would fit in. But when I came and I saw those black, I saw those black and white shoes down there that you told me you designed. Was it
old jazz shoes? Yeah.
Gold jazz.
Old jazz
shoes.
Yeah.
And also, even though your stuff is has a different sort of, obviously on the top you go Lulu Guinness and Grenson,
Yeah.
But it's a sort of glamour, isn't it?
Oh, it's lovely. I love it when two slightly different things come together.
But also we both like the glamorous side as well as the
absolutely.
Sort of
we all need a bit of glamour
side.
in our lives.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about right at the beginning, because I've been through the same thing, is starting a business.
Oh, yes.
So before we get on to design and things like that, tell me about the very beginning for you and starting a business, and what made you want your own business, and how did you start, and how scary was it?
I think in those days we were very lucky. There wasn't so much competition by half. When I started my own business, it was sort of towards the end of the 80s, right at the end of the 80s, and everyone was doing it. We all had so much confidence. And a lot of people my age, my peers, were starting them, whether they were doing like, I don't know, a little publishing business, a little boot, they just were all, people were very confident. We didn't have the internet, so it was incredibly difficult finding anything out if it wasn't in the London Yellow Pages or whatever
or the library.
So for instance, so you had to go to but so for me, finding it about manufacturing in England for anything, if it was out of so I did end up going up north a lot, actually. In the end, Chester was where I found my manufacturer, because I was doing leather briefcases then.
But how did you so what was your first thought? Did you wake up one morning
No.
I know what I want
basically
to do?
It happened to me. It kind of kept hitting me until almost, basically I came up with things, and then there was a demand. I was kind of a big vintage queen, or I was young, so I was a princess, but so I always wore vintage clothes. So we were a little bit, so I suppose I'd been photographed a little bit. And
where were you living? You were living in central London?
I lived in London, I actually worked doing other things. I had initially wanted to be an actress.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was and then I learned to do, I had to get office jobs in the end.
Yeah.
And through my 20s, I had quite a lot of fun. I'm afraid we all behaved a lot worse then.
Is that a euphemism, fun?
For what?
For doing outrageous things?
Just sort of going out was really important, in my early 20s, I suppose. And, it was the time of all the nightclubs with all the people then.
It was fun,
went on and became the designers and the fashion, the singers and things like that. But I had an office job. I did. I learnt to write PR. What do you call them? Pitches and all that kind of thing, and the publishers. And I worked for various people, but everyone was always commented. I had individual style. I was kind of known in a sort of cult way for my look, I suppose it was. Handbag-wise, I always used to carry vintage bags, so nothing very interesting there, I guess. And then later on, so it was clothes I was really interested in.
Yeah.
But then I in that sort of 80s way wanted to design a briefcase that you could fit all your items into. Anyway, it was a concept.
Yeah.
So I spent about a year on the side finding out about that, and I ended up in Thailand and all sorts of places trying to get something made. Wow. It was really difficult.
Brave though.
I was bloody brave. I think there was one stage when I was on my way to a taxi in the outskirts of Bangkok, which by myself.
Yeah.
I did think, actually,
what am I doing?
Am I ever coming back? You know, because I was going around a sort of industrial estate somewhere.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were lucky, you know, we were all full of self-confidence. And I'd lived in Paris for 3 years with a fashion photographer. So I was sort of in the fashion business a little bit, but not an acting member.
Yeah. But the initial idea, it was a bag. It
was a briefcase. Yeah, well, it was a briefcase because basically I looked around and I thought, I don't want an office job. And I just hate working in an office Monday to Friday. It's just, you know, I find it really difficult. What can I do so I don't have to, you know? And so, I mean, it's nearly 30 years ago now. So the biggest thing in England or the world at that stage, which is so old-fashioned that most people, if they see this, won't even remember it, was the filofax.
Oh, yeah.
And the filofax was Apple. It was every computer. It was the laptop. It was the phone. It was. I don't know why we thought they were so interesting, but
I've still got one here in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely.
But your filofax was sort of. It was the most talked about thing that ever happened.
We were so excited, weren't we?
Oh, for at least 2 years. And it was
just paper in a leather cover. That's
but the way it went. Anyway, and then people started doing different filofax, you know, all of this kind of thing. And I thought, okay, well, that's what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's a big wow.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? Oh, I know, I'll do. And then I sort of came up with this concept, which now is what I do every day, you know, because obviously my brain was already working like that.
Yeah.
So on ideas, because that's really what I am, an ideas person, I guess.
Yeah.
And I came up with this sort of briefcase. It was a sort of bigger, it was for women. And the whole point was women had only just moved into the workplace in the city. And it was all about power shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big women's thing. Yeah. And the whole kind of statement of it was that it looked like brown leather from the outside. So you could work wherever you worked. You know, and everyone wore black suits to work in those days. They didn't wear their home clothes.
No, it's a uniform.
And then you opened it, and it either had red or purple suede all over it as the inside. And I knew that, you know, it's like, okay, big deal. But at the time,
have you still got one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was that was your first ever product.
Yeah, and then I went and sold. You know, I went and met through a buyer I knew in America, through a friend of mine. You know, you really had to. Yeah. It was like getting auditions or whatever. You know, you'd ring them and their assistant would say, "I'm afraid she's out in the office." You know, i.e., not you again.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the end,
in meetings,
I managed to get to meet through a girlfriend of mine that had gone to work for Bloomingdale's in America. You know, luckily I got to meet a few buyers and.
So, do you remember your first account that you sold?
Yeah, but it was on consignment, as they call it.
Yeah, on wheels.
No,
they used to call it on wheels.
Oh, on wheels.
Yeah, so if it doesn't work, it's out. I
was very lucky. I was Browns. Yeah. Was my first. And I was allowed 2 in there on sale or return. I mean, But
great, what a start! So you were right at the top.
Yeah. No, I mean, God, I was walking on air.
Yeah, I bet you were.
And my briefcase cost so much to make. I wasn't making a profit. It was just.
What did it retail for? Do you remember?
Then it retailed for £400, which is rather like saying 10,000 now, isn't it? Because it was, in my naivety, it was the most complex piece of leather work ever known to man. Yeah. It was a leather on the outside, then it had suede on the inside, and then on one side it had 8 pockets which were leather, but they then had transparent pockets so you could see. Wow. I mean, it was so complicated, but ignorance was bliss, you know. I didn't realise I was actually asking for the hardest thing you could possibly make to be made. Yeah. Then the other side had a document thing that you unpoppered and took to your meeting, the document holder. Anyway, so actually it was the Mr. Bernstein, it was the husband, and he was very sweet, and he took me for some coffee. I remember we were outdoors in Mottcombe Street, and we sat at a sort of cafe table, and, you know, they were just nice.
Nice people.
Yeah.
Did it sell? Do you remember?
Yeah, but I think I sold those couple. But meanwhile, I went and saw Liberties. It went into Liberties on consignment, and it went into Joseph. Then I went to see the Harvey Nichols buyer. And she just said to me, look, it's too expensive for us. I mean, by that time they had a sort of young bit downstairs, which I can't even remember what it was called now, but it was sort of the Top Shop or the whatever is, of then.
Yeah.
What was it called downstairs at Harvey Nichols? It's like Harrods had the Way In.
Way In was on the top floor of Harrods. I can't remember the
Harvey Nichols had their equivalent anyway. And also Harvey Nichols was the hottest place in town.
It was the place to be, wasn't it?
Yeah. Interestingly, it's all cyclical. And she said, why don't you have bags more like you dress? And I was like, this is a serious... She actually was probably started my business.
I was going to say, what?
Carol. I ended up working with her for years on... and then she moved to Liberties. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So then I sold it. And anyway, she just said to me, go away and come back with some less expensive, because young people are going to want to buy your stuff.
Yeah.
And be like you, be colourful and be exuberant and all of that. So I went away, and it was a very long story. I ended up making them actually I started with Cordway. I mean, I had to learn, like, we still do. If you have your own business, you have to be a quick learner.
Yeah. Because
you literally learn as you're doing it. I mean, everything always kind of happened to me, and then I sort of caught up and kept this, always tried to look like I knew what I was doing.
Well, you learn from your mistakes, don't you?
Yeah, in the long run, yeah.
I remember sitting with Barney's, and I went to see Barney's. It was my first meeting. And they asked me questions that are absolutely normal.
Didn't even understand.
I didn't even have like price lists or... Yeah. They asked me for delivery times. I had no clue at all.
Also, you always sort of think American isn't a foreign language. But they used to say things like, so I'll take that in periwinkle.
What's that?
It's a blue colour.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or they'd say, and the first time the DTI,
And would you kind of write it down, pretend and nod as if you knew?
And in the beginning,
then go and
you'd
Google
be like, Google it.
Oh, sorry, you couldn't Google that. Yeah.
Please,
go
look
down
it
to
up
the
in
library.
a dictionary. Well, I think I probably have my own dictionary. No, I would ask someone like my friend. But in those days, I was so sort of bespoke, or like making as it happened. So I'd have a colour chart. So they go periwinkle, and they take away. You had to. Oh, it was also.
So it was all made to order then. They could choose the colours, and you would make.
Well,
them up.
no, you don't need. And then you got wise to that.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't buy. You then learned you had to buy the same colours.
Especially if it's on consignment.
Yeah.
So
no. After that, I never did consignment again, because I had to realise. And as I was saying to earlier, so I looked out, and rather like the days of Instagram or so. I mean, in those days, I did realise I'd lived abroad all my. I was a global child. So I wasn't just thinking England's the best, or England's... Actually, everyone thought England was dreadful at the time, and all wanted to live somewhere else. The fashion, we didn't have our sort of creative self-respect that we have now. Everyone was always in New York or...
Paris or
New York, or Milan, anywhere.
Yeah.
And now for ages, it's been the coolest place to be. But at that stage, it was different. But you just learned as you went along.
And how did it? At what point did you feel this is really working and it was really starting to take off?
I don't think you ever feel that.
Is it just a kind of gradual thing? There wasn't a day that you saw one of your products in the high street, in the street, or you saw an article.
Funny enough, when I thought I was a real designer, well, obviously being in I was my first. Quite soon on, the first bag I did on a very, very, it shows how whimsical we all were and unpragmatic. I decided that I really missed, I love flowers, and I really missed having flowers in the winter. Like roses. I love roses and I miss them. So I wanted to put roses on the top of a handbag, you know, so that you could always have them. So I made this rose basket, and it was obviously, it was the zeitgeist, isn't it? It's the right thing in the right time in the right place.
Yeah.
Because the next thing I knew, I was allowed to put some things in someone else's shop in Elizabeth Street.
Oh, right.
And I had a couple of these rose baskets. I mean, they were made individually. They were more, the way they were made was more like making a hat, really, because they were satin and flowers, and everything was made by cordwainers people.
Was it?
That's what I was going to say to you earlier. Yeah.
Oh, really?
So my first makers, in fact, all my makers always, for years and years, were, I used to drive all the stuff to the place, to Hackney, and then later on, I used to drive to Wembley. I mean, I did everything, and I really did. I did every job.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That is to do in my company.
So what's your, I'm interested in your design process. So everybody designs in a different way. I remember reading recently that Paul Smith saying that he designs in words. He never draws anything, but he'll say to a designer, I've got this idea for a jacket with extra wide lapels, and so he'll design in words, and that's the way he does it. They'll draw something up, and then he'll say, no, more like this or more like that. What's your process?
It's changed, because it goes from the beginning, and I think I'm sort of going back to the beginning. I think it's cyclical. He has such a big business. So you start off, you draw, you make it out of paper. I mean, I never went to cordwainers or any kind of art school more than I did a bit of graphics at Cape Town when I was young. But, so you literally made, or you found a postcard, we didn't have all the aids we have, but you literally made it first. And also you didn't have factories, or you were at the place and you gave it there and you go, oh, I want the curve a bit, it was that. So I sort of learnt that, and, rather like Kath Kidston always said, her training ground was Blue Peter, because
right.
I learned you to cut out bits. Do you know what I mean? Literally
Sticky
measuring,
back plastic.
And loo rolls and all of that. And I did actually make, cylinders, cardboard cylinders. I mean, I had a bag that was a dog years ago, which was why I got into Neiman Marcus actually.
Okay.
In Paris, and it was a cylinder, and then it had looked like a laptop, but it was a cylinder of cardboard, how I originally made it, and then it had chenille wrapped around it, because we all wore those chenille scarves at the time, and I wrapped one around, and then I tied it where the tail was, and then I cut something off another bag for the face and tied it. I mean, so I've gone from sort of literally making it, and then the complication was getting someone to make it again.
Yeah. They'll look at it and say, well, that can't be done immediately. If it's anything like the shoe business, everything you do that's different and new, they'll immediately say, oh God, that's really difficult.
It's rather you feel it's that same response you get from, if you're an architect or you're talking to a builder or anything, if you say anything that isn't absolutely what they've done for 18 years, like painting a ceiling a colour or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's like that little early resistance that you've got to break through.
You don't know. Well, I still deal with that on a daily basis, because I have I try and work with perspex. I try and work with all of these things. And I probably am not a handbag. I'm just one of those people. I'm a sort of untrained artist, really. But what I really like is decorative arts. I have no aspersions to anything else, and I love so my love of sort of a plique and embroidery and putting flowers on things and everything was when I was really, it all coincided to be one, like that's what people wanted. And I was an evening bag maker, actually. I mean, I made my name in America very much for evening bags. Because I'd had the flower basket, I guess people looked to me for that.
Sure.
But I just learned on the job, So, the American buyers is an interesting one, And I went through the usual cycle of all of that,
And tell me about the lips, because on the shoes that we've made, how did that first come about? Well, when did it come about? Because it's a trademark,
I think
isn't it?
10 years ago now.
Okay.
About 10 years.
Fairly recently in terms of the lifetime of the brand.
Yeah. But I always, when you're asking about my early days, the one thing I did, because it suited me actually, you know, in the end, and also I lived in Paris for 3 years, from 17 to 20. And I think there you learned very much this thing, whereas in the English style at the time was punk. So if something is how you look, you all do that, whether it suits you or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you shave it, you do the whatever, you wear fishnet tights and a mini skirt up to here. Yeah. Even if that probably isn't the most flattering thing for you.
It's got to be done.
It's got to be done. Whereas the French thing was kind of, you know, which no one actually told me, but I guess I always say I sort of got my training by osmosis from living in, you know, just sort of sponge-like, really. Yeah. And I knew that red lipstick suited me. Whenever I put it on, I don't know if how much I've got on at the moment, but if I did that, it was sort of as if I came to life. It was like, you know, like asleep me, and then, okay, I'm on. And people say, oh my God, that really suits you. And so in the end, that sort of sinks in.
So had you been wearing red lipstick for a long time?
Yeah. Okay. So to become my trademark,
I see.
All through the 80s and everything, and it wasn't sort of people, it was quite out there at the time, you know, people like natural things a lot. Yeah. Well, if you wore red lipstick, you were a part of a tribe. I mean, still, I'm part of the tribe that wears red lipstick. We know who we are, you know. And so the red lips was my signature, and I'd sort of talked about it for ages. My first one was snakeskin, actually.
Really? On a bag?
Yeah, I mean, it was a soft bag, if you see what I mean. It was had pillow lips, you know. Oh, right. Now, the one that people think of is the Perspex one, I think. But it was made in leather originally. And so red lips was my trademark. So we made a red lips bag. And
did people ask for it? Things with, do you have this thing with fires where they always want lips on it? Can we have some lips on it?
What do you mean, do you? Yeah. Do you know, it's interesting because in the beginning, I was used to doing different things every season. I thought it was a cop-out. Because this was before everyone was like brand conscious. Yeah. Didn't you? What's a brand? You know, his coffee had the brand or something. Yeah. But you know, like that you repeated the same thing and all that sort of thing that now people do. I thought as a designer it was a real cop-out to do anything the same 2 seasons running. I mean, I didn't have new ideas. That all sounds so funny now hearing that.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting as well, because reinventing everything every single season.
But that's how I was made. Yeah. And I still am, actually. You know, it's just.
But having something that's a signature, isn't it a nice comfort as well, isn't it, as a designer, don't you think?
Relax. Well, you get
a little
in
bit.
And out. I think I'm never the same about anything for 2 days running. One day I'll hate it, and the next day, for some reason, I'll see something that'll make me like it again. But the lips are basically, yes, they're my trademark. I don't own them, but they're my trademark. And how they're done on these shoes makes me love them today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, tell us about the shoes then. What the first thing is that I would guess you're known more for wearing heels than flat shoes.
I'm the original high heel girl. My best high heel story is that because I'm 5 foot. I say I'm 5'2". I'm like 5'1.5", and I was always very conscious. You know, I always wanted to be taller. I think a lot of it was because for the 3 years I lived in Paris, all the girls I knew were models. Yeah. Because always I lived with a photographer, and so if you're always around 5'11" girls, anyway, I didn't learn to love being small at that 20. So I always wore the highest heels that were possible to wear for years and years and years. And to the point that I didn't have flat shoes, you know, I really didn't, because trainers didn't exist then either. No. I mean, no one wore trainers. No,
except for sport, I guess.
I mean, there might be a pair of tennis shoes or football.
Green flash.
Runners. Yeah, but I mean, they weren't. They were like, you know. And you could wear flat shoes, but I mean, you wouldn't. You just wouldn't as a woman.
Are you converted now, though? Or not? Not fully. Have we got you 100% yet, or not?
Actually, so basically, I bought my first pair of Grensons because I fell in love with them. I saw them, didn't I? And I fell in love with them, and I liked the
Clara, I think it was.
Clara, and I fell in love with the what's they called?
The tassels. Yeah. There's a kilty on, and it's got everything on it basically.
Love
that you can
that.
have on a shoe.
Yeah, so I like everything on everything, obviously, maximalist.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with them and I got used to wearing them. And I have to say, the truth is, though I do my own shoes now, and I do wear high-heeled, I wear wedges to parties and, when I have to be a bit taller. Yeah. But I bought those, and that was last winter. So I wore them the whole of last winter. And now I'm addicted to them, and I find it really hard putting any other shoes on. But meanwhile, we were creating these.
Yeah, these lovely things here.
And yes, I really do find putting any other shoes on quite a problem. I'm not just saying that.
And are you pleased with them?
I'm really pleased.
I'm thrilled because they're so
good,
so different.
I'm
don't
so
you think?
pleased.
They're so unique.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think simplicity is all. And I think we really did collaborate in that way that,
I think because for us, collaborations are all about not just about two people coming together and sharing logos on a thing, but actually bringing.
No, but I also, I did bow to your shoe knot. I mean, like, for me, what was interesting about the process, because I love the way the lip is the...
Yeah.
What's this called? I never remember.
Well, this is like what we'd call the strap on a.
But what's this bit called?
The
flap.
Tongue, I guess.
The tongue. Yeah.
It's not really a tongue on a loafer, but I know what you mean.
But you know what I mean. The bit that comes up.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's the bit that comes up.
Yeah. But I love that merges into being, and I like the fact they're patent.
Yeah.
I love the way they're so well. Edge paint, they're
made in England, made in a factory that's been going for 150 years.
One of the reasons I wanted to work with you is because they're made in England. Yeah. And I think that is so unique. I think it's about the only thing I do make this season. I went from 80% of my stuff being made in England to it not.
Yeah.
And anyone that makes shoes in a British factory, it's just fabulous, and I still haven't been up there, which I'd love to do.
Well, you must come and have a look. But it's not
the
idea that you can make
absolutely immaculate. I'm really proud of them because
really sweet,
they're a proper pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And as I say, can you hear them squeaking?
Yeah.
I've been wearing them. My pair. I'm not going to bring my leg up here.
No. They're basically like this. But with a few creases in the front.
I've been wearing my pair for a bit, and I've never had so many compliments about something, really.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. That was really interesting. Really enjoyed it.
Good. Well, you've got a little bit.
That was brilliant. Great. Cool. Is that okay? You happy?
Yeah.
That was me.